Put my teeth.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Buchanan. I am here yet again doing a dark panel, and I love, like, if you've been following dark over the space of the last year, it is almost like the panels that we have done like almost tell a story, just talking about the impact of policing on public safety in many ways, because the more that you research and the more that you learn, like a lot of people last year got really into the idea of activism around community stuff for the first time, and they kind of had to discover power relations and stuff like that for themselves, and they also had to be like introduced to like what was practically possible and who was working hard on these issues. So like, I'm glad to be joined by three people who are people who've worked really hard on these issues and have a lot to add. Listen, Marshall Rancifer, you've done a whole lot in Atlanta. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, my name is Marshall Rancifer, and about 12 years ago, I formed the Justice for All Coalition. I had already been doing street outreach with the homeless for like 8 years prior to that. When I started doing outreach, I was actually doing it on the bus. I would take 6 or 8 bags full of stuff and get on the bus. And then when I met my fiance, she started coming out with me and helping me. Then I was able to get a car a few years ago, and things just blew up after that. We do various, with our outreach program, we do a syringe exchange program. We give out condoms. We help people with housing. We get people into treatment in the housing. This past year, we worked with the Atlanta Urban League, and we helped 190 families with rental assistance to keep them in their homes. I go to court with people that are homeless. I'm a staunch advocacy of homeless issues. Like I said, I've been in the game for like 22 years now, helping the homeless. I'm actually a formerly homeless person and a drug addict myself. I'm in recovery today. I want to make one thing clear about recovery too. You just got today. I tell that to people out on the streets every day. I'm no miracle. I'm nothing fancy, because I only have today, and I never know what tomorrow holds. But recovery is a process. We have to go through to reach the other side. But I'm not gonna say I'm not proud of myself, because it's been a long 22 years, and with ups and downs, just like everybody else in life. But through recovery, you learn how to hold on and make it over the hump and get to the next step. And recovery teaches you a lot about life too, and I'm so proud of that. And I use that out on the streets, and that's one thing I'm proud to say. I'll be an example by sight to folks out there, because everybody out there knows me, because they remember me when I was on the streets. Because actually, one of the people that I want to talk about that passed away from hypothermia, Patino Griggs, he actually took me under his wing when I was out there using and got homeless. And he had been out there for like 5 years before I met him. And with that, I guess,
Yeah,
like I said, I'm out there 6 days a week doing the hard work, serving food. We actually went from serving 600 people a week to 1,800 once the pandemic started. And we've been busy ever since.
I want to move it onwards. Khalida Harris, like, if I do your intro, I almost have to do your intro, because if you just describe your life, it sounds like you are bragging. Like, author, director, producer, editing, you run a business. Like, can you just pretend, that you don't have to be modest? Like, really talk about it. You've done a lot. Can you just talk about your personal history and the documentary and all of that stuff?
Yes, well, I am Khalida Harris. I am an empath and humanitarian on a mission. So I have my own production company called Realtor Productions. Been in business for over 14 years. And I basically have a company in Columbia, South Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. So I directed my first documentary called No Address, and it's a series now, which depicts the criminalization of homelessness and how communities can come together to implement proven practical solutions to address this epidemic. So the first one was released in 2020, and I plan to have Atlanta released by the end of the year.
Sunny, can you talk about Soul Underground? Because you are, like I said, like as soon as I looked you up, I was like, she's in my neighborhood. I practically jumped out of my, because like on Bankhead, like that's not true. We have a lot of projects that are like that, but I mean, Mary's out there. Like we have a lot of cool people in town that are in West Atlanta. But tell me about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, we're just a kind of community space over, like you said, in Grove Park on that side of town. Unintentionally, we ended up we're doing a lot of projects with unhoused folks. Started with a warming station. Now it's just like twice a week wellness checks, and we've been housing people for a bit. So just a little bit of everything.
Listen, it's great. I'm glad that we like all have an opportunity to kind of talk about some of these issues, because Khalida, like one anecdote that I remember hearing from you that stuck in my mind was talking about how like city councils really try to get people who are houseless like out of town or in prison. And those are kind of like the binary that is how we discuss those things. So as we talk about that, can you talk just about how that binary has impacted your advocacy? And before you do that, can you give your pronouns?
She, her. So yes, that's kind of like the common denominator on decision making, is when it comes to policy, the city council members are basically the ones that are allowing enforcement of these ordinances.
Sunny, can you talk a little bit about like how public policy has impacted your work, and also give your preferred pronouns?
My pronouns are they, them, and I'd say the most jarring example of how public policy has really impacted the work we do is the amount of sweeps that happen with folks that we work in. Especially like 2 weeks ago, we probably dropped off 40 sleeping bags, 20 tents. It was just, I don't know the exact number of everything, but it was like $1,500 worth of supplies. And in 2 days, they were all gone because they were sweeped, because that's just something that the Hope team does through the city. And yeah, I also get the arrest reports for like ACDC, and quite a few names on there are like listed as, homeless or whatever. And so it's just being, seeing how the policy of just like the rocks and all that play into just folks getting the things they need.
Marshall, can you talk a little bit about how public policy has impacted your ability to do your work? And can you start with your preferred pronouns? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
The public policy, actually, I was working with I go to all the city council meetings, because usually every other Wednesday they have the meetings that around that affect the homeless folks, and they make policy in those meetings. In the full city council meetings, they basically just sit there and listen. They don't do any actions. You have to go to the committee meetings to actually help set policy. And one of the things that happened most recently was last year, where we put together a flyer to warn all the unsheltered people about the pandemic coming. The city wasn't going to put anything together to warn them. Then I went to them right at their last committee meeting and asked them to help us finance it. And we never did get any financing. We actually had to go to Larry Davis Law Firm, Park County, State Representative Park County, Mabel Thomas, and to one other person to get the funding to put the flyer out. We put out 3,500 flyers warning all the folks that, they were saying you couldn't come in contact with folks. And that's one of the things homeless people do. They have close relationships and they share everything. So to keep the pandemic from spreading into the unsheltered homeless population, we got those flyers out. We actually were handing out masks, but as far as it's really hard to get them to move on anything in the direction you want them to, because it's like a clique down there. And Catherine Marshman, she runs, all the homeless issues through Partners for Home. If it's something that she don't agree with, then it's not going to happen. 3 years ago, we put an initiative together with several churches in order to have spaces for people to go when it got cold. We got 7 churches to agree to open their doors as warming centers. We met with them 3 times, well, 2 times, and on the third time when we were supposed to set up all the logistics, they didn't even come back to the table. Didn't give us a reason why, and it just ended right there. And
I
people
want
died because of that.
I want to take that conversation and kind of move it towards where do the actual resources go? Like a lot of the APD's resources seem to go to like enforcement against camps, loitering violations. It seems like there's like a constant presence around those things. How much of APD's resources like go to those things, and how much does it cost in relation to just giving people houses?
Well, one of the things I found out is that those resources, the resources for homeless folks, they go through several different organizations, not just APD, but Corrections Department, Constituent Services. Um, Also, they go through the Parks and Recreation that run the warming. Well, actually, they put the warming centers in the recreation centers. Okay, this year was the first time that they used a hotel. Normally, the warming centers are located at Adamsville, uh, Central Park, and Grant Park. But normally, unless you pressure them to open up Central Park and Grant Park, they will only open one warming center. And it's the furthest one away from the city. But that money, I talked to Felicia Moore today about that. That
Mhm.
money would have to be. I actually tried to get the numbers today, and I would have had to put in a public records request to see which each individual department gets what amount of money to do anti-homeless work. And everything that they do against the homeless is intentional. And as a matter of fact, it's been an ongoing campaign for the last year and a half to drive the homeless out of Atlanta by any means necessary.
Yeah. Khalida, can you talk about like what that campaign looks like in Atlanta and just things that have been done to push out the houseless, during major sporting events or just to improve property values, because you have a lot of insight into those tactics. You're on mute.
Where the resources are going, basically, what Marshall said. But what I'm seeing is that they're getting, like from the DOT, let's talk about the hostile architecture, what they're doing under the bridges, things like that. They're all in cahoots on beautification. That's what it is. The less we see, the better it is for the average citizen in their mind. But you can't keep displacing and hiding people. And COVID kind of showed how many people are unsheltered right now because everything was empty and then everyone else came out into the streets. So even with the numbers and the stats and they saying that it's going up, that it's going down, it's because people are hidden. The point in time count is just false. That's just a misleading thing that we do one day out of the year, and you plan on counting every human being that is unsheltered. No. And then the definition of unsheltered is different. It's not that you just are on the streets. It's the shelters, obviously, and then it's doubling up, living with someone. So anyone that does not have an address or are on a lease are considered homeless. So these numbers are misconstrued in a lot of different ways just to give us the illusion that they're taken care of, but they're not. So they're just going through these measures. And even Marshall and I was at the Women's Day Center, and they were the ones that actually called law enforcement to sweep in front of their shelter. So I say that a lot of people are in cahoots with this, and you can't just kind of blame one. It's a collective effort.
Sonny, can you help connect the dots here? Because when activists talk about the houselessness crisis in Atlanta, we often talk about development, eviction, gentrification, homelessness, policing. Like, how do these things tie in together? And like, where does policing come in?
Yeah, I think especially now that it's getting warmer and more people are outside, we're seeing like just an increase in policing because, you know, people don't want to see that. They don't want to see folks on the street. They don't want to see, you know, these camps. So they've been getting sweeped a lot more. So it's been just kind of uptick in policing that way. And I don't think people understand that when like camps are swept and all their stuff is taken, people are losing, you know, just all the things that they own. So like birth certificates and social security cards and like wallets and all the stuff that can identify them and that can get them into shelters or get them a job. Like all that stuff is gone. And it's just perpetuating that cycle, because if you can't get a job, how can you, you know, get out of that situation? So yeah, and it's just being a highly visible group. You don't have anywhere to go. And especially in Atlanta, it is, houselessness is like, most people on the street are Black. So it's just, you have being Black against you, you have being houseless against you, and just being more visible. So,
Marshall, you want to get in there? Unmute yourself.
That's what we were talking about before. What Khalida was talking about, we were actually over on Elster Street when they came and pushed people out of Elster Street on 2 different occasions that they cleared that homeless encampment out over there. The other thing, we were down at the HCDC right before the Super Bowl came. Now, you know, Mayor Bottoms said that she wasn't going to arrest people for the Super Bowl, but 2 weeks prior, they started arresting homeless folks. And I want to be down at the where they bring them into the jail just to look in the cars and see and make sure they were bringing homeless people in there. And what happened was they offered everybody that got locked up during that time, you know, were able to get a signature bond except the homeless people. And they didn't get let out of jail. There were 70-some homeless people arrested before the Super Bowl, and then none of them get out of jail except for the 3 that accepted the pre-arrest diversion program. And they offered to everybody, but only 3 people took advantage of it. And the rest of the people just chose to sit in jail until the Super Bowl was over. Now, as far as the gentrification of the neighborhoods and how it's affecting it, that's been going on for years. And in the laws that they make up, like the DC-6 law, they were arresting poor people throughout the city. They were averaging 5,000 arrests a year just on that DC-6 law until we got it overturned. And they target, like in the Bluff right now, it's being gentrified. And so they target the people that they see on the streets for arrest. Yeah. You know, people get arrested for walking in the roadway when there's no sidewalks in the Bluff.
I want to pass that around. Can y'all talk in general about ways that police target and criminalize homelessness? Like, how could the city be fighting to support the houseless community? Is there an alternative vision about like positive things that the city could be doing instead of what they're doing now? Khalida or Sunny, either of y'all, feel free.
What I would say that law enforcement does not need to be involved, because this is not a crime. I mean, you're targeting people without homes. So there needs to be other groups involved, which there are, you know, mental health advisors and counselors and case managers, but it's not enough to combat the increasing number of people. And now let's not even talk about the moratoriums. Whenever that gets lifted, I mean, people already are on the eviction list from last year. So once they start that, we're going to see, they're projecting a 40% increase in the unsheltered population. So, I mean, something's got to give, right? So if someone's jaywalking, you get a ticket. If you urinate on the sidewalk, which there's no restrooms anywhere, you get a ticket. If you panhandle, ask for money, you get a ticket. If you're feeding someone that is unsheltered, you can get a ticket, a citation, or you can get arrested. And in the documentary, this guy got arrested 4 times just for sleeping on a park bench. And he does not have the money to pay for these citations. So therefore, he gets a failure to appear. Now you have a warrant for your arrest. Now you're charged with a criminal, and like Sunny as a criminal. And then Sunny said, you can't get a home, you can't get a job because all of this haunts you. So on top of not having shelter, now you have all of this to follow you for the rest of your life. So it's like, what's the point? It has to be some other hidden agenda going on that needs to be addressed, because let's face it, like the private industrial complex is a moneymaker. So you can use the people that don't have resources any way you want, So that's where we are now.
There are mutual aid groups around Atlanta, like you said, not just individuals, but like if you're feeding somebody downtown, you are running into trouble. Can you connect, or anybody here that wants to connect those dots? What is the city's interest in stopping mutual aid if somebody is freely giving to a houseless person?
It just makes them look bad, because they could easily do that with all the, like the folks that I know that do mutual aid at Woodruff Park do it probably for like $50 a week. So if we can feed 300 people with $50 a week, like, then the city could do it. These mutual aid groups, like the ones at Woodruff Park, the ones that I work with, we are able to do more than the city does with literally like 10, like Mary Hooks, Marshall. Like, I know we are all literally operating on the smallest budget we can. We're like buying the cheapest bulk food we can get, and we're still doing it better than the city, because the city would rather, spend $32 million to keep ACDC open instead of using those $32 million. They know exactly how many people are homeless in this city, because they like to throw that number around all the time. But so the number, and then the ACDC should be closed and that you have $32 million. So the only thing that's stopping them is the fact that they don't want to, because they don't care enough. So that's why the city doesn't really like these mutual aid groups, because we're showing people, the public, whatever, what can be done, and instead of waiting for them to do it and just doing it. And so then they get a little bit embarrassed, and yeah.
Can I offer a little background on how all this stuff started about feeding?
Yeah, feel free.
We have been feeding folks for years, okay? And the number of people that kept showing up kept getting bigger and bigger. So between Georgia State, Partners for Home, George Cheedy, and the Atlanta, what's that group? What's the name of that group he's involved with, Khalida? I'm forgetting them.
Central Atlanta Progress.
Yeah, Central Atlanta Progress and Georgia State. They got together and put together this flyer to discourage people from feeding folks. And on the flyer, it said you would be charged with a certain ordinance. Well, I looked the ordinance up, and it was actually the ordinance was for people that were feeding people without a permit. So they came down to the park, and they gave out tickets. Everybody got a ticket but me, and they were looking for me, but I didn't park up there by the park that day. I parked on Georgia State's property at a pay parking lot. But everybody, they ever clean, and a bunch of folks from Food Not Bombs, they got tickets. The day of court, we went down there to the courthouse, the day of the courthouse, that they had court, and we fed people right there in front of the courthouse, gave out clothes, did HIV testing, which is one of the things that we do. We had people giving haircuts and all that stuff right there in front of the courthouse during the trial, and they threw all the cases out. But this is a concerted, like I said, everything the city does is intentional to drive the homeless out, to make it harder and harder for them to live in the city. And matter of fact, the homeless populations around north DeKalb, have increased by tenfold. In Brookhaven and Chamblee, I live in Chamblee, I got people sleeping outside of my building right now that are homeless. And when I asked them where they from, they said, we came up here because they arresting people and harassing folks in Atlanta. Brookhaven police and Chamblee police, we actually work with them because they got progressive police chiefs. Brookhaven police just hired, because me and Lisa were getting so overwhelmed, they hired 2 mental health specialists to work with them on 7 days a week. They work 12-hour shifts to help the folks that are mentally. I posted pictures of us actually working with the police up here in North DeKalb. And Dunwoody police, same way. They actually don't want to harm the folks. They want to help them and help them get off the streets instead of putting them in jail. But that's the big difference in between these police departments outside the city and the actual police department in the city.
Okay. Well, listen, like, I feel like the city has been doing that for a long time, and there's been the list of excuses that have been used have been like the same excuses since the 90s. I just think that now there are like a different generation of people who are like, wait, like, I've experienced this enough to know that this like isn't helpful. I mean, when we talk about, you know, houselessness in cities, armed police are often sent to break up these situations. It seems like there are safer alternatives to using like a force that is trained in that sort of way to handle people in the community that are so vulnerable. Like you said, in different cities, you've got people who are literally mental health professionals working with those people, and it's faster and more efficient and hopefully less costly than hiring more police officers to do that work.
Exactly. Because, like I said, I post pictures up of our actual work with the different police departments that actually work with us and help us. And it's a whole, man, those officers so much, it's so much different than APD officers. They're so much nicer. And actually they don't want to even have to even interact in a police type way. That's why they call us. And once we get on scene, they leave and leave
Well,
it to us.
well, look, every little bit is positive. I want to talk about encampments. Um, do you guys hear discussions and narratives around encampments and why people want to get rid of them instead of like responding to them in a humane way? Because we like, if you drive down like Edgewood, like you see them.
Well,
Marshall, if you want to talk about camps, you can. We don't mind.
yeah, I want to talk. I can talk about them. I mean, the city is not responding in a positive way to the encampment, and that's the way they go about tearing these encampments up. It's intentional too, and that's all Catherine Marshman right there. And I'm gonna, like I said, when I decided to come on this program, I'm gonna call people out for what they do, the ratchetness that they do, because I sent y'all an interview, 2 interviews with guys that actually got their camps destroyed,
Yeah.
and it was right after the point in time count. See, they used the point in time count to locate these places, and then Carletta was with me. We went one Sunday. They had done bulldozed this camp. We talked to this guy, a little 5 points, did an interview with him, and we went to the encampment. And they had been the bulldozer was still sitting down there on the property, and this place is not even was in sight of the public. It was in the woods, and they went in there and just tore the whole thing down. It was right there, I-20 and Maynard Terrace. And what they do is they've used the point in time count, which is a bunch of horse hockey. You can't count a city the size of Atlanta, all the homeless people in one night or one day. You can't even do it in 2 days. And I'm gonna explain why a little bit later. But what they do, everything that they do is intentional. It's intentional because they want to drive these folks out. You know, they're giving out money to all of these folks now. We're putting people up, putting the chronically homeless up in these apartments. They did a little experiment in an apartment complex last year. They put 100 people in an apartment complex in South Cab on Memorial Drive, and not one of those 100 people is still housed because they didn't get proper case management, and they're back out in the streets now. And the same thing is going to happen with all these folks that they just took off the street. If they don't get proper case management and get real case workers that's not there for a paycheck, but there because they care about the folks, that they actually care about what happens to them, until they hire those kind of people, this is going to be an ongoing problem forever and forever.
Sonny, I want to talk to you about and just how to mobilize people. Like when you are out, like working on these things, how do you motivate other people to join in that work? Because burnout is a real issue. And I've always found many hands make light work. How do you like get other people to participate in these processes?
Yeah, that's really been something that we've been trying to think about, because it is really hard to convince people, especially when we're doing like the warming station stuff, to come and stand outside at 3 a.m. when it's like 25 degrees. But I think really just letting folks know the reality of folks that kind of have no choice. Like, they don't choose to be out here. You like have the choice, because you have the privilege and the opportunity to like say, no, this isn't something I want to do. So really just letting folks know like the reality of it. I think like, especially when we document when sweeps are happening or when they've already happened, that's when we see the most people come out to help or like donate and bring out supplies and stuff. I think just showing them like the real reality of what it's like when, you know, these folks don't get the help that they need. But yeah, burnout is a real thing. A lot of my friends have already, you know, gone through that because it is a lot of work, because it isn't really something that you can go home from, because sometimes you're just sitting in bed and then you're thinking about it. Like, you know, so and so asked me for a blanket 2 days ago and I haven't been able to get to the store, and then it's just all you're thinking about 24/7. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, joining your work doesn't always, you know, necessitate getting on the street corner with you, though. Like, people, there are other ways that people can participate.
Yeah,
like, people can send you a cash app and they are like in a real way participating in your work. You're like, yeah.
$30 can get somebody like a sleeping bag and a tent. So like, I don't want anybody to ever, like $5 can get, like, we can buy food with $5 to feed like 30 people. So every little bit helps, even if it's just sending in cash, even if it's just reposting so that your rich friends can see it, or like, you know, letting somebody that you see on the street know where they can find us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Khalida, can you talk about like, how do you motivate and inspire others?
Well, through this documentary has definitely been a way to do it, because first I wanted to bring awareness, because a lot of people have these preconceived notions of what the unsheltered look like and are. So I wanted to break down those stereotypes first, and then it's about change. What can I do? Because just from the feedback, it's like, I'm going to reevaluate how I look at people on the streets now. I just had no idea, you know, because there's so many different types of people. There's the working class. There's the people that just, you would never know that they did not have a home. And then most of them can't even stay in the shelters because of the restrictions of their job and their time. So it's just, it's so much. It's so much. So watching the documentary has a lot of call to actions in it. So people can just take these necessary steps. Even just looking someone in the eye is a huge thing for someone that is at the bottom, you know, in their life. So that's my goal. And then one of my ultimate solutions, what I'm working on now, is the land fund to build villages, because it's been happening in Austin, Texas, and even in South Carolina. So I'm using their model to start in Columbia first and then Atlanta. Obtain land and build communities and have all the resources right there. And then agriculture, carpentry, blacksmith, anything you can need on the land that we can create entrepreneurs.
How much does it take to do that?
Oh, it takes a lot of money. But it's going to take us, like, getting the land, that's the first step. But, you know, having the resources there, the wraparound services, people to come in and teach, that's going to take a lot. But right now I'm building the foundation, because it's a lot of the grassroots organizations that want to sit at the table but can't. So I'm saying, forget that. I'm tired of begging. They had a century to do this, right? Yeah. And it's getting worse. So we're going to have to be the change we want to see if we want to eliminate or even end the stigma.
Alleviate, yeah. Eliminate or even alleviate the stigma surrounding the houseless community. I can rock with you. I know where the
right. So I'm looking at a piece of property already, and someone is talking about donating, and even anybody that has land right now that wants to donate. I mean, 1 acre, 5 acre, you can do so much on land, and then have the commercial kitchens and the laundries and everything there, and people will become sustainable. So that's what we kind of want to do, and have the clinics, all of that on the land. So that's my goal. I'm working on it. I have the GoFundMe out, you know, the No Address Foundation, and we just gonna keep rocking. So after I finish this next documentary, the goal is just to work on a solution.
I need to talk to you off air. We need to start building some stuff. Marshall, how do you motivate and inspire others? What gets people to get out there? I know you talk to me, you have a lot of lonely days out there. What gets people like off the sidelines in your experience?
Well, it's not as long as it was when I first started. And in the last couple of years, we've really grown our outreach program. Um, we get donations through my GoFundMe and my PayPal. We usually average about anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 a month. But we also have an online sign up now. Thanks to this lady named Liz Goldman, she has helped me a lot in the last year to set up different things to get people to donate and also to get people to participate. We have a community of folks that she's involved with and that I'm involved with that actually puts together our hygiene kits now. So me and Lisa don't have to do that now all the time by ourselves. And we actually take the supplies to her house, and she gets her neighborhood association and other folks to come in and put the hygiene kits together. She gets groups of kids to come in and put the hygiene kits together. We have an online sign up where people can either make meals or sack lunches for us to distribute out in the streets. And then myself, one of the reasons, like I said, we were getting so much trouble about feeding folks is we make some of the best soup in town. We make a smoked turkey soup that's got 23 vegetables in it. And when we pull up to a spot, I take pictures, you got to see the crowd that gather. When we go to the bluff, I mean, it's like, then I got this big speaker I use sometimes to play, let folks know that we're in the neighborhood. And it's just a steady stream of people. Um, we also have uh, both street medics, two from Morehouse School of Medicine, and we got two from Emory School of Medicine that act as street medics. And then we got a doctor with us. His name is So Hype. He comes out with me 2 or 3 times a week. We don't come like little. He's like my little brother now. Um, and we got an OBGYN. He convinced the OBGYN to come in to supplement the midwife that we had with us already, helping us with pregnant homeless women. We've actually helped 7 pregnant homeless women get their babies delivered for free. We actually work with several women that's in extended stay hotels. And that's another thing that we need to discuss is all the families and people that have been displaced from their apartments staying in extended stay hotels that they really can't. And once you get in that extended stay hotel, it's so expensive, you can never get out without, it's just hard to save money in those places because they rent from anywhere from $300 to $500 a week now. Um, but we have, we've really grown the services that we offer folks. We got Dr. Kim Leonard, like I said, she's a mental health specialist. She goes out with us twice a week. We got Terry Bowles, she's one of our midwives that comes out. Then, like I said, we just had a new OBGYN and a midwife join us for outreach on Fridays. So we do what we call KISS outreach on Fridays, which we focus on sex trafficking victims, uh, women that's out there turning tricks for dope and stuff like that. Because those are most of the women we deal with that's getting pregnant. We also have a lot of younger girls that are getting pregnant that are homeless right now.
Listen, I want to ask before we start, I want to go back and talk a little bit more about direct aid and why that's so important. But first, I want to ask y'all, like Marshall, given where you're at in your development, and I'm going to bring this around to everybody, briefly, what do you need in order to grow or to improve or to continue about your mission? Like, what is the next thing that y'all need to be accomplishing that you're reaching out to the public to,
Well, we need more in-kind donations of the outreach items that we use for our hygiene kits. It's like I've gone through 8 gallons of hand sanitizer that I got in bulk from different breweries, like Roswell Brewery, and then I got some from 5 gallons from this brewing company down on Boulevard. Um, we need more cash donations because we never have enough cash on hand. I mean, we go through money buying food. I bought a freezer, but I've actually been cooking all. I actually need an in-kind donation of a commercial kitchen so I can get out of my little small kitchen and really throw down. Because I can't. It's hard to cook when you're in just a regular kitchen because we use 100-quart stock pots, and the one of those 100-quart stock pots fit across both eyes of my stove. Okay, and so I need the use of a commercial kitchen or a commercial stove. Okay, and if I can get more cash donations, then I can use that money to rent a commercial space to cook in. Because like right now, it's like it takes me 12 hours to cook food for 1,600 people. Okay, and I don't cook. See, I remember when I was out on the streets, uh, people would feed you anything, and most of the times I didn't even take food from people that brought food downtown. And I had one guy tell me, man, when we were handing out sandwiches, when we do sandwiches, we don't do processed meat. I cook the food, and then we make the sandwiches from the meat that I smoke on my smoker. I got two smokers that I use. I smoke turkeys, I smoke chicken, I smoke Boston butts, and I smoke uh, pork shoulders. And we take that meat and chop it up and turn it into sandwiches or meals, or we make a big pot of soup or two pots of soup. And so what I need is more help. And if people want to help volunteer to cut up vegetables, I can use help with that. There's a lot of different ways. You don't have to come out on the streets. And most folks, when they come out on the streets with me, a lot of times they don't never come back because of the places I go. See, I don't go to the normal places everybody else go. I do all the neighborhoods. I go to the crack houses. I go to the prostitution houses. I go to the shooting galleries. That's where most of my work is done, okay? To the people that most need it. I'm a harm reductionist. So when I go out on the street, I try to reduce the harm in these people's lives by feeding them, by sustaining them with sustenance, making sure they doing safe sex practices. That's why we give out condoms and lube. We do syringe change so people cut down the spread of HIV. We reduced. You couldn't 10 years ago you couldn't walk around the bluff and not step on the syringe. Now you can't find one over there. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we do not only to help them but to help the public and I actually protect the police because a cop stick his hand in a person's pocket and stick themselves with a dirty
Yeah.
needle. You know what I'm saying?
Let me move this around because Khalida, how can the public support you in your work? What do you need like next to go to the next stage?
The next stage is to support the land fund. Watch the documentary. It's out on virtual cinemas on my website, noaddressdocumentary.com, and just connect with me there because there's going to be a lot of that I'm going to need, from lumber to just blood, sweat, and tears to all once this land comes into fruition. So just contact me on noaddressdocumentary.com.
Sunny, this sounds like we're wrapping up. We're not. But this is a good place to talk about because like we really talked about what the work is like and how people connect. So give us, the mental space, give us the imagination. What do people need to do in order to plug in and help you get your organization to like the next level? What's next?
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty easy. Like Marsha was saying, we kind of just need folks to be there. It's like what we do Tuesdays and Fridays when we go out. It's probably like the easiest thing that we can do. We let people take whatever they need from the table we set up, but we just need people to stand there. Like people just like us being there to have conversations because they just like hanging out with us. So it's literally like you spend 3 hours on a Friday hanging out with some really cool folks, hearing stories. Maybe we'll ask folks to cook because I can't cook. So we need folks to like you said, Marshall, like smoke some meat. I don't know how to do that. I can make some soup, not good soup. I don't feed people anything that's not good. So I try not to cook for it. But yeah, just cooking and folks that want to like help us go shopping for supplies because I got ADHD. I will always go into the store with a list and walk out with either twice what was on the list or like half of what was on it. So,
or it's we can tell you were thirsty because you got a lot of drinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's definitely me. Yeah.
So yeah, just folks that want to come and hang with us for like 3 hours once a week. Super easy. Just kind of like,
we also need to talk. I got to talk to everybody. Okay. I want to talk about why do we do direct aid instead of calling city council? Like, why is that kind of work critical to houseless advocacy, abolition, all of these things? Like, why is that important?
Can I take this?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I don't want to go into like the history of mutual aid or everything, but basically the way that we look at mutual aid is building parallel systems to the ones that already exist. So the reason that it's important for abolition is because the systems that already exist are rooted in racism. It's rooted in inequality. It wasn't meant for everybody. And so the reason that mutual aid is so powerful is because we're building systems that are similar in the work that we want to do, but rooted in collectivism rather than, or hierarchy, like, because, we got the government, bureaucracy, whatever, and helping the people. It's the people helping the people. So in my opinion, in order to achieve liberation, we literally it has to be mutually built by each other, because it's just neighbors helping neighbors. So that's why I think it's more powerful to go out and hang out with people and just hear what they need. If someone tells you they need a t-shirt, like, you can go in your closet, either find one, you can go to Walmart and get one for $5. Like, it's not even anything. Like, I don't think about it anymore. If someone's like, hey, I need a t-shirt, like, I'll just be like, okay, cool. And like, that's like the bare minimum, like the root of mutual aid. And then if you just keep doing it with your neighbors or your friends or whatever, you can actually build it into sustainable systems that end up changing people's lives. So that's why I think like that is the root of achieving liberation, because the second we get these systems sustainable enough, we can do without, because at any point, like, they can cut off food pathways and stop shipping stuff to Kroger, and then we're kind of out of luck. But like Khalida was saying, like, building farms and like, food sharing, like my neighbor has 10 chickens, I can get eggs, and I happen to just grow a bunch of tomatoes. Like, we can just share that and, stop relying on the things that oppress us. So
Khalida or Marshall, why this work?
I would say direct contributions, mutual aid, soup kitchens are very important because people would starve to death. I mean, really, if it wasn't for humans helping humans, it would starve to death.
Yeah.
It was very important. And even when I was doing that, when I heard about this, you have to have a permit to feed, I'm just rebellious anyways. I was like, are you serious? So I said, well, I'm going to go do a drive-by then, right? So I got in my car and had a bunch of meals in the trunk, and I just stopped and did a drive-by in my trunk. And then when I went to the park and started handing them out, one guy, I think he was in his 20s, and he said, aren't you scared? I said, scared of what? He said, that they can arrest you for doing this. I said, are you hungry? Does it even matter? So this is what they're putting in people's psyches now, And I'm like, you're worried about me, and I'm worried about you, having some nourishment, But this is how it is. So therefore, you will reject me helping you because you're in fear of these statutes, So we have to continue to do this work and be defiant. That's all I'm saying.
Marshall, I have a question, and I've never asked you this before in private or public, so I don't know what the answer is. Has anybody ever tried to get you to do something else?
Get me to do something else?
Yeah, as an advocate.
Oh, yeah.
It'll
Captain
be easier.
Martin tried to get me to do something else. Well, it was pertaining to helping her displaced homeless folks. She offered me $4,000 to give her all the locations I knew homeless people were hanging out at and hiding out at.
Oh, man.
And I actually did a test. I actually tested her. I didn't know that it was her plan until after I gave her the first 2 addresses. And next thing you know, these guys were getting ready to move out of 2 abandoned houses because I got them in the housing, right? And it wasn't 2 days later, Atlanta police showed up and boarded up the houses. They showed up with city crews and kicked them out while they were moving out and boarded up the houses. So needless to say, I didn't make that $4,000.
Man.
I'm not going to turn on my people like that. But one thing I want to say in response to what Khalida and Sonny said, and I don't know why I can't remember Sonny's name, but we actually been together before. And but one of the things that I do that I remember when I was out on the streets, okay? And that's why I do what I do, because I remember how hard it was for me to get the help that I needed. I had went to 25 churches over there around English Avenue neighborhood. I stayed over there, Simpson and Tazar. And I got turned away from all 25 churches when I was seeking help. They either told me they didn't know how to help me, or they didn't help my kind, or we can't do nothing for you. And I ended up at a church in downtown Atlanta, Central Presbyterian. And I never will forget the day when I started using crack. It only took crack 3 years to take everything that I ever had, ever owned away from me. And the day I walked into St. Jude's Recovery Center, the day I started using, I weighed 257 pounds. When I got to St. Jude's Recovery Center, I weighed 127 pounds. And I didn't even know how I was going to survive, you know, because I was doing some of everything out there uh, when I was out there using, messing with all kinds of folks, possibly had HIV. I had to get tested for 7 years in a row when I first got clean because I had slept with 5 women that tested positive. And it was all through God's grace and mercy that I didn't catch it. But I made a promise to myself when I came out of that shower, my first shower in 9 months. I had the same socks on so long that when I took them off, all the skin on the bottom of my feet came off. And the socks practically stood up in the corner by themselves. But this guy was playing Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. And I had never listened to that song. I heard it 1,000 times, but never listened to the words until that day.
Are we singing it? Are we doing it? Marshall froze. I can do it. I know the rest of this story. And Michael said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. You got to look at yourself, then make the change. And starting on that day, Marshall looked at himself and he made the change. Marshall will be okay with me missing part of that. Listen, I want to talk about long-term solutions, and I'm sure Marshall will unfreeze themselves at any moment here. What do we need to do in order to change this so that, number one, houselessness is an issue that exists in the past, because other countries and other places do a better job with it than we do, honestly. And also so that organizers are not burnt out doing this for free or for next to free or in pizza, you get one extra slice of pizza on the slide. What do we need to do in order to fix this long term?
I don't want to speak for Khalida, but the thing that we're attempting to do is pretty much the same. We want to buy something, property, land, an apartment complex, literally anything we can do to start housing people. And just getting bare minimum, getting people on their feet, or bare minimum, getting people off the streets, especially when it's cold out. Before this all started, Marshall was talking about folks that had died. I know 2 folks personally that died this past winter because it was so cold. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but no one should be dying because they're on the street and it's cold. Bare minimum we can do is literally putting people into places with dignity, because I got opinions on the ways that we help homeless people, because a lot of the times it's not done with dignity. And anyway, outside of that, I think we just need to support cooperatively owned spaces. That's what our space is. It's donation based, so we pay rent based on the money we got.
Yo.
We all buy into it. We all own it. It's a community space, and just more spaces like that. You're trying, in my opinion, try and unionize your apartment complex to buy it so that it can be a cooperatively owned space. My mom's from New York, and she lived in Co-op City, or she's from Co-op City, and it's a cooperatively owned kind of building, city space, whatever. I don't really know the specifics, but more spaces like that where the rent is whatever my grandma paid in the 80s now. I'm sure my grandma, the apartment is $500. So more things like that.
Khalida, what do we need to do long term?
Yes, long term, like Sunny said, housing and alternative housing, of real affordable housing. Atlanta puts up a $300,000 condo and say that's affordable. So that's not affordable. You have to have about 10 jobs, just minimum wage jobs, and the minimum wage is still $5. You know what I mean? So these are long term. Raise that then let's put real alternative housing, even if that's like tiny homes or container homes or still homes. Those are real sustainable, especially the container and still homes, because they can withstand Category 5 hurricanes. So we can really have people in sustainable homes and then put them on wheels and they can go wherever they want. Like there's so many solutions. Even with the city, if you employ people, every city that I've been to doing this work documenting, it's filthy. Every city is full of trash. So won't you employ the unsheltered to clean it up and pay them $12, $15 an hour? So there's so many solutions. That's why I say do they care? Do they, what can we do? But it's going to take us, and what Sunny said, and what you said, and what Marshall said, we all can collaborate together and put this vision into fruition. We can set that model for us and be like, all right, I can go ahead and put that in this city. I can put that in this state. I can do that. So we have to be that example. We're talking about it all day long. Now let's show it.
Marshall, I cut you off. Your internet cut off for a second. One, I want to give you the opportunity to finish the Man in the Mirror story, although I gave a not as good version of it. And also, what do we need to do, like, long term in order to, like, keep things, alleviated and improved for our future? Marshall, you're muted.
300. I tear up because it just, I remember how hard it was for me back then. I didn't even think I was going to survive, but the, the, the story ends like this. It's like when I looked at myself in that mirror, I told God if he got me to the other side of what I was going through, I promised him that I would dedicate my life to keep another sick and suffering addict or another sick and suffering homeless person from going through what I went through. And I got another little story to tell about it because I told you about how bad the food was, and I served good food. I had a guy come up to me one time at outreach. I offered him a sack lunch with a sandwich, and he said, "Man, I don't eat no damn bologna." I said, "We don't serve no damn bologna. We serve good food, But I do what I do because I had the love I have for other human beings, like Khalida said. It's about one human taking care of another. And that's the way I was raised as a child. My parents taught me the meaning of taking care of other people. My dad took care of all the boys that didn't have fathers in my neighborhood when I was growing up. So he led by example, and that's what I do. You know, People talk a good game, but it ain't about. I tell people all the time, it ain't about what you say, it's about what you do. You know, and we as human beings should do more to help our brothers and sisters. Because that's what I call everybody out there in the street. They're my brothers and sisters. I don't have to be related to you for you to be my brother or sister. You be related because we choose to be, because of the love we have for each other. Mona Bennett with Atlanta Harmony just to tell you, I never met a person I didn't like, you know? And that's the way I start my relationships with people. Um, Now, what we need to do as far as funding, we need, instead of funding all of these big agencies that work from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, they need to start funding some agencies like me, people that work 12 to 14, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And some days I don't even take off that seventh day. If somebody calls me and need help,
Let's
like this
talk about
woman
it.
called yesterday, I had no intention of working yesterday. But this woman called me and said her husband was beating her. And what did I do? I got right off my house, got right in my car and went to take care of her, you know. But we need to get some of these big time funders that funded
Yeah,
all the money United Way get.
yeah.
You don't see no United Way people out there in the evening time. They
Let's
work
talk about it.
9 to 5 or 9 to 4, and that's it. You don't see
Marshall,
nobody out there.
Marshall, where do people donate? How do they donate to you?
I'm going to send it to you. They can donate. I got a cash app. It's called Justice for Homeless. It's
That's what.
Justice, the number 4, and then homeless.
All right.
And then my PayPal account is PayPal me / Marshall Ransifer.
All right, we need to slide that in there, and we'll
can
put
I interject?
Yes.
With United Way. So the American Rescue Plan just received $5 billion for the unsheltered.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of this money goes, it's so much money out there. So a lot of this money goes to the big companies, the agencies, United Ways. And if people on the grassroots level or other nonprofits can get with them, they can receive some of this money. A lot of people don't know that because they're basically strongholding it and dispersing it to whomever. But if these nonprofits can sit down and talk about a real plan and solution that they're doing, they can receive that money as well. So I just kind of wanted to plug that in there for the COVID.
Listen, this has been just an awesome hour. I really need to hang out with all of y'all individually just in the next week or two. I mean, we've been here for an hour. I mean, if you guys want to talk more, I'm happy to
I'm game.
I can hang out here and chop it up with y'all for like a good 3 hours. I wouldn't mind. We've always got more opportunities. But before we leave, I feel like we've all just shared so much of ourselves and our journeys. Does anybody have anything that they want to add? Not necessarily an organizational plug, but like good advice that you got, things that you want to share, just a message of hope. Any last words? Y'all chime in with whatever you like.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, brain, whatever, if you want to get into this work, but you don't have time for an org or whatever, honestly, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, just ask people what they want. Like, I'm really tired of seeing folks throw away these like really nasty bologna and mustard sandwiches because people don't want that. People don't want your granola bars. Literally, if you're going to bring people food, ask them what they want. 9 out of 10, we're in Atlanta, they're going to say chicken wings. So go to American Deli, get them some wings. Like, it's $10, $15. You can post on your story, tell, hey, I'm going whatever to buy people food. And your followers will send you money.
And also that person who you buy chicken wings for is probably a cool person. And you're probably going to have a cool conversation.
Yeah, like stop and have it. I just moved and there's a guy who like holds up a sign in the middle at the intersection, and not gonna lie, I blatantly stop in traffic at this point to talk to folks. I'm like, hey, like, what's up? What's your story? This is who I am, whatever. And if like literally the reason or part of the thing that started like the Soul warming center was my friend and I were going to dinner. We came across 3 guys who, it was literally so cold we couldn't even walk to the restaurant that we were trying to have dinner at. We were just like, okay, it's too cold for us to be outside walking, so it's too cold for you. What do you want? And they told us they want chicken wings, vodka, some socks, a blanket. So we, instead of going to dinner, we went to Walmart, got all the stuff they wanted, came back, gave it to them, and then went to dinner. So it's literally like, if a 30-second conversation to ask people what they want. So please just ask people what they want, get them what they want. If you can't afford it, be transparent. Like, hey, like that's not in my budget, but I can get you XYZ. And just, these are normal people, have normal conversations. That's my advice for folks.
Oh, we need to hang out. But anyway, we all have, I mean, Khalida, I want to give you an opportunity. And by the way, to Mama Harris, hello, and thank you for watching. Do you want to plug your website and talk about the documentary and give people one last opportunity to be part of that?
Yes, you can view part 1 of the No Address series, which features Columbia, South Carolina, and it begins with their criminalization back in 2013. It's on our website, noaddressdocumentary.com. And Atlanta is going to be featuring, having this discussion of where it all started, if you will, from the Olympics, the Super Bowl, and then COVID, and closing of the biggest shelter piece here in Pine. So it's going to be a lot of interesting topics in the Atlanta series, and that is set to be released in 2021. So I basically, this year, the end of this year, but I basically just want people to because a lot of people say, what can I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And, a lot of people are on the corners here in Atlanta. So if you don't even have any money, like Sunny said, just having a conversation with somebody. Or if you have water, like it's getting very hot soon. So if you have water, if you have a snack, if you have some hygiene kits, have hand sanitizers, a mask, whatever it is that you can give to someone, you have no idea how much that enlightens them and brightens their day. And then they can be good for the next person, if you will. And then that brings goodness to your spirit as well for doing something for another. So that's why we just need to constantly get back into this love, because this social distancing and physical distancing is really becoming a thing where people aren't interacting and communicating like we should. So we need to get back to love.
Yeah. Also, a 24 pack of water is like $1.60 something at Walmart. And that's during the summer. People want cold water and hot food. So if you just start keeping, like, I keep cases of water in my car, just hand people water, like when you're at an intersection or whatever. And if you don't have hot food, that's fine. People love Pop-Tarts. People like tuna.
Listen, yeah, I want to. We got to talk after. We got to talk to everybody after. Marshall, you got anything you want to say about life, just about fellowship, friendship, what brings you, whatever? Anything you want to say before we leave?
Yes. One of the things that I love to do is have conversations with people. As y'all seen today, I love to talk. So, and that's how I made most of my interactions. And one thing I want to tell you people, if you want to stop and talk to homeless people, just be honest. Tell the truth. Because they know when you shooting them a line of shit, okay? Just be honest and truthful, okay? Because homeless people read through bullshit like nobody's business, okay? So if you want to get out there in the streets, and if you want to come out and learn how to do outreach, hit me up on my Facebook page. Call me at 678-396-5768. I'll be more than happy to train you, and we can get you hooked up with harm reduction training. We do that every first and third Saturday of the month. And if you feel fearful that you don't want to do it like that, or you don't want to go and hand out water, bring it to us, or we'll come and pick it up, and we'll take it out there. Because whenever people donate food, like I said, we got a sign up that you can go online, and if you, I don't remember what it is right now because Leah set it up. But if you hit me up on Facebook, I will get you to sign up where you can sign up to make sandwiches and stuff, and we will pick those up also, or you can deliver to us, and we'll get them out on the street. So when people do that, then we let folks know where the lunches came from. And a lot of times when kids make the sandwiches, they always write little notes on the bags for the folks that we're gonna get a sandwich to. And you wouldn't believe the smiles that those notes give folks, just to see that somebody else cares, And we let them know every time we go out, when we don't make the food ourselves, we let them know who made the food, okay? And those same people that we give the food will be praying for you, okay? Because homeless people are most caring. They take care of each other out there on the streets like families should take care of each other. And they should be out there on the street because their families should actually be the ones taking care of them. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in today. Back when I was a child, you would never see another person out on the streets with nowhere to go and nothing to eat. Because I was raised in the 60s, and that just didn't happen back then. We didn't start coming into this homeless issue to the late 70s and early 80s. But I would say to anybody that has even thought about doing something for folks, like Khalida said, we're all human beings, and we should all pitch in. And if I want to say anything, I would want to say, please open your hearts, open your spirits, and open your souls. If you ain't got money to give them your time. Like I said, and I love those folks. If you sit down and you may convince somebody to do the things they need to do to get themselves off the street just by having that conversation. And when you see a homeless person, don't walk by them like they invisible. Speak to them. Say hello. How's your day? I speak to every person I see on the street, and that's what you should do. I don't, because I remember when people treated me like I was invisible, and that's the worst feeling in the world. That's all I want to say.
Listen, before I throw it back for last words, I want to plug both myself. I do a podcast. It's called Not Safe for Wonks. It's notsafemedia.com. youtube.com/notsafemedia, twitch.tv/notsafemedia. I have long form panel conversations like this, like once a week, and chop it up and do like fun stuff like this. Darkatl.com and social media at DARCATL. That is our defund APD refund communities campaign, and you can be up to date with like good real stuff like this. Khalida, I'd like you to have the privilege of closing us out. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just wanted to do a plug as well to the National Coalition for the Homeless. If people want to get involved, please go there. These are the ones that are on the Hill, creating policies, doing what they need to do, even, bringing the unsheltered to the Hill to have their voices heard as well. So we're creating a lot of different campaigns, Bring America Home again, or Bring America Home. And I feel like everyone should join that. If you want to know the stats, you want to know what's going on in your area, because it covers the whole country. So National Coalition for the Homeless, it's nationalhomeless.org. Y'all go there and get involved.
Everybody, thank y'all very much for watching, hanging out with us for an hour. This has been like one of the coolest, most fun things I've done this week. I just loved hanging out with all of y'all, and I hope that we can all do it again. Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you soon. We've got a canvas on June 5th. If you want to join us in real life, Dark, we're always out just talking to the neighborhood. Yeah, that's it. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you for the opportunity.
That was good. That was great.